Hey, everybody, welcome back. Thanks for joining us once again. We're only a couple days in here, but we're super excited if you're here at Call It Both Ways. I've got my co host alongside me here, Kyle Wilson, and we're just kind of excited to touch back over episode 1 and dive into episode 2 on some plays we shared on Facebook this week and maybe some additional things we have coming in the future. Also, if you didn't catch it on Facebook, we had some great news where Kyle is going to go in depth on. But for anybody interested in any sports officiating gear or anything of that nature at all, you might want to hear what Kyle's got to say.
We know the place to go, so we are extremely excited to announce that we have our first sponsor. Man, can't describe, that's something that if you'd asked me when we were spitballing ideas to do this, I would have been a foregone conclusion, I don't think that'll ever happen. Well, we found one. So our very good friend Blake Smith from Sports Officiating Supplies is our first sponsor. Very proud to have him on board. So any officiating gear that you could possibly need, they pretty much have. So from peewees to pros, sports officiating supplies is your source for all things referee. They offer uniforms from 16 states as well as NCAA apparel. So as a certified Smitty dealer, they offer a wide selection of uniforms for 8 different sports at competitive prices with personalized customer service.
Nice.
So owned and operated by active officials, we want to make your first great call. So visit them online at sportsofficiatingsupplies.com. And something else we are even more proud about, something I would have never thought, we have our own discount code. Let's go. So for anybody interested in basketball specific, so what we mentioned before, we may talk about some other sports here and there, but we are a basketball officiating podcast. So for anybody interested, if you will go to sportsofficiatingsupplies.com/discount/both ways, you will get 10% off of any basketball apparel or accessories. So visit them, get your gear. I know I told Blake earlier today that I'm calling my first year of some college softball, so I've got some new gear I'll have to get, and I will be getting it from Sports Officiating Supplies.
I know I'm going to be buying some gear soon, especially
For sure.
with that discount. Got to take advantage of that. So if you happen to miss episode 1, we were able to cover the block charge play and the over the back play, as we like to hear. If you missed that, make sure you hop on over to YouTube or Facebook, check that out. It's about 40 minutes long. We talk about life and a couple plays and try to go in depth with some examples on the screen just to help everyone be able to understand that a little bit better. Today, we're going to kind of dive into a couple different topics versus what we talked last week. And if you saw on Facebook at all this week, we posted both of those there. Kyle, you want to go into that?
Yeah, so this first one, anybody, especially from Oklahoma, officiating friends and maybe just basketball fans in general, have probably seen this play. Went what I would consider viral over Christmas break at a tournament in Tulsa. Here, I'll let you pull it up and we'll kind of go over it. Yes. So this is a backcourt play. Before you get it started, Austin, so we're going to have the black team, or at least that's what it looks like they are wearing. The black team in the backcourt is coming from left to right, so their front court is to our right. So you can go ahead and start it. It looks like number 23 in black has the ball in the backcourt.
Get it to Deacon Jones. Jones is trapped, lobs it up ahead for Denton, who rips it away from Scott. And they're going to call over and back, and that can't be.
It can't be. It can't be. There was never all 3 points across.
All right, I'll go ahead and pause it there for us. We'll run it back.
So most people, and you heard the announcers, when people think about backcourt, that 3 points that you heard them mention, that's usually the first thing they think of, and that's not wrong. But that has to do with somebody that is in possession of the ball. In this case, though, a teammate in the backcourt who has backcourt status, and in order to obtain status in the backcourt or the front court, all that is needed is for you to have 2 feet planted. So this player clearly has 2 feet planted in the backcourt. It's in possession of the ball. And then you can go ahead and play it, and if you'll stop it right, as close as you can to his teammate catching it at the division line.
Yeah, gotcha. And I went ahead and muted the announcers, too, as we go forward.
That's fine.
Do my best here.
It's kind of grainy at this point. That's fine. You can leave it right there. So this player, his teammate that is coming from the front court, he has 2 feet planted in the front court. He has front court status. He catches the ball in midair, and lands with his right foot. It's hard to tell because this is a little grainy, like I said. Oh, perfect. Oh my gosh, look at you go. His right foot is right on the line, but is partially in the backcourt. So this constitutes backcourt. The reason being, so in order to obtain status, we mentioned you have to have 2 feet. We already said that his teammate that threw it to him was in the backcourt with backcourt status. His teammate that he did throw it to had front court status, and the ball was still in backcourt status because what decides the status of the ball is the player that last touched it. So since the player that last touched it is in backcourt status, throws it to his teammate up court who has front court status, and lands in possession of the ball with a foot in the backcourt, that is backcourt. I can see how that'd be very confusing had I not learned that from. There is literally a specific case play about that, and it's word for word in the definition of player status. Had I not known that from reading the rule book, I would have been just like the announcer. And I will say, I was told, but this is a very well-known high school announcer in Oklahoma, I was told that once he was made aware of the rule that he went directly to the official and apologized. So I did see some people kind of dogging him on our Facebook quiz post, but that just goes to show you that a lot of people, if you haven't been in the rule book, there's a lot of these intricacies that there's no way you know it. And I don't expect you to know it, but for me, I think that's where a little bit of frustration comes from. Like, I personally, like, you want to take me to a soccer game or a hockey match or anything like that, I don't understand not knowing something and being really, really emotional about it. So that's one thing I think we would be a little bit in a little better place as far as the high school game if people would just let the people that are supposed to know the rules. And I'm not saying we're perfect. Obviously, there's things where we either have lapses of memories or maybe just don't know. But by and large, your officials know the rules.
I agree with you there. And hey, I kind of want to touch on the point you made earlier about three points, having 3 points, and what that kind of means for front court or back court status. Let's say the play was a little bit differently. Let's say that we don't have a pass here and we just have somebody dribbling. They're dribbling up the floor, and right at the division line, they decide to straddle the division line. So they're dribbling the ball in the backcourt, and their left foot's back there and their right foot's back there. Do we have anything different? Do we have anything crazy there? What?
You can sit there as long as one of those 3 points is in the backcourt still. You can put 2 feet in the front court and dribble with the ball in the backcourt. You can straddle it with both feet, like you said, and dribble in the front court and dribble in the backcourt. I'd say, though, vice versa on the same play we just saw. Let's say it was the other way around. The ball was already in the front court legally, and a teammate is running from the backcourt to the front court and does the exact same thing, jumps from the backcourt, catches the ball in the air, and lands in the front court. We have a backcourt violation. Because you are the easiest way. A lot of referees know this. And I hope to educate some fans as well, maybe listening in. You are where you were, not where you're going. So we use that to remember the status rule. So you are in the backcourt where you came from until you are planted 2 feet into the front court, or vice versa. Either way.
I think that saying goes around. We hear that from I don't want to say everybody. I'm sure other people have different phrases, different sayings. And if you do, share them with us if you've got some other phrases. We'd love to hear them.
Add to the tool belt.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So it's always important to just grow your skill set in whatever you do, whether that be for us, obviously officiating, but anything that you're focusing on. It's always good to just add new skills to that, add new developments, and just improve on those as we go along.
For sure. So, Austin, did you want to pull up that second play?
Yeah, sure. Let's see here.
So we had one other quiz question, and we appreciate all the feedback on those. The more the merrier. And I'd say don't ever hesitate to give a wrong answer because that's how we learn.
All right. So this isn't the exact play that we had shared on Facebook. The numbers are a little changed, XYZ. But this is the actual casebook play from our rule book, or our casebook, I should say, on what happens when somebody gets confused and shoots the ball at the wrong basket, but they get fouled at the same time. I know it's kind of a crazy scenario. I don't know if I've ever seen it personally. I definitely have had somebody score on the incorrect basket before, but I don't know that I've ever had somebody foul them when they were trying to do so.
I've seen it one time, and I only saw it on film, not in a game that I had, thankfully. But I think this is probably the thing I go back to. A lot of times for officials, we go back to things that we either messed up or that we witnessed that got messed up, and remember that and put that in the memory bank to never happen to you, hopefully. But no, it happened in a playoff game in Oklahoma probably 4 or 5 years ago, maybe a little longer. I don't know. Where same thing happened. They got confused, tried after an inbound, turned around and tried to shoot the ball at their opponent's basket, and the opponent also got confused and comes and fouls the heck out of them.
Oh my gosh! Did they get it right? You remember?
They did get it right.
Ooh, that's awesome. That's
They
awesome.
did
You
get
love
it
to hear
right.
that. You love that. Love that. And so, if you were following along for the quiz and you were curious on what the answer would be in this situation, the answer is it's no goal. So as soon as the foul occurred, the ball became dead. So the reason for this is when a player throws at the opponent's basket, it's not a try. If the team is in the bonus being free throws, A1 would be given 2 free throws at Team A's basket. So they're going to go down and shoot them at the correct basket. If they weren't in the bonus, then the ball is going to be awarded to them for a spot at out of bounds. So it's important to note the only time that we'll shoot free throws in a situation like this is whenever we're in the bonus. We're not going to shoot free throws for the shot itself because it's not going to be considered a try because it wasn't on the correct basket. I know there's a whole lot of information that goes into that, but like Kyle, like you said, it's one of those things that once you see it or once you hear about it once, I don't think it'll ever get past you.
For sure. I think in every sport I work, that's probably how I've gotten better at, I guess, all of them. It's just remembering scenarios like that I either messed up myself, saw it get messed up in a game that I was a part of, or saw film on. It's very, very easy to remember those times because it's not very fun when it's you. And it happens. That's part of it. We all have lapses of memory, sometimes obviously lapses of judgment. There's so much that goes into it while we're on the floor that people don't realize sometimes that can go into a play being adjudicated incorrectly or a rule being misapplied. But what about it specifically about this rule is it that makes this not a shot attempt to where you're not going to have shooting free throws?
It's specifically because it can't be a try unless it's at your basket. So because it's not at your,
In Article 2, it literally says a ball into a team's own basket. So that is part of the rulebook definition.
and so that's the only reason you're talking a little bit. I'm going to get a little off topic here about plays and plays that we miss or things like that. And I know some of these plays are tricky and kind of confusing. Those are the best plays for us to get better. I really feel like my intricate plays, my plays that are layered or have a lot of complexity to them, are the best ones to kind of go back and watch and just be prepared for. So that way, whenever when games are intense or when the situation's high or on the line or two teams are competing really hard, then you're gonna go to your training. You're gonna get back to that training where you've watched those clips, watched those plays that you've missed, and know where you're supposed to be, what positions you're supposed to be in. So I do hope that sharing these little intricate plays that are a little bit complex help some of the other viewers kind of understand what we're looking at whenever we're watching for these in the game and what makes them so complex. Because like you said, we had to go into another rule because we need to know what's a try, what makes the ball dead. There's multiple layers that go into that play as to why we're not going to score that basket and why they're not shooting free throws. So I think that's kind of the same thing. Like I said, derailing a little bit here, but it's the same thing with team control fouls. How sometimes people may think that we would shoot free throws for that, where we don't. So XYZ. It's the same difference. We'll put it at that. It's a little different though.
For sure, and one of those things that if you haven't been in the rule book or at the very least experience those things yourself, then you may not have that in your tool belt.
Sure. Now, apart from rules, sometimes we also have experiences and things like that, where we're able to watch some people that we enjoy watching officiate, or we get to learn from our mentors. I know that you went on a trip recently and got to indulge in some great college basketball on the men's side. Do you want to talk to us a little bit about that?
So, man, that was an absolute blast. So we mentioned him last episode, Owen Short. It's a good friend of ours that is a full-time Division I men's official. Last year, actually, he started inviting Austin and I both out to basically choose one of his games and come to watch, which from our perspective, that's like Owen's a celebrity for us. And literally, and I'll tell him that all the time, which is funny because he's a friend. But still, like as far as officiating, that's who we look up to and where we want to be. But no, the weekend was amazing. I got to go to Lexington, go to Rupp Arena, which was really cool. See the museum that they had there and all the history that obviously goes into a place like that. But as far as the officiating side, man, a dream. Got to ride to the game from the hotel to Rupp with the crew. Got to see all the ins and outs of all that fun stuff. And then, so referees get 2 tickets to each of those games that they work. It actually was a pretty solid seat, but I walked into pregame with the crew. And before, when we first entered the building, I got to know some of the security guys, and then the ushers that were in the corner of the arena that we walked in on saw me with the crew, and I'm assuming just assumed I was with them and was supposed to be where I was. So I played on that for sure. Waited until after pregame, and then let's see, I think it was maybe the first media timeout or so. So I waited about 4 minutes or so and kind of scoped out the floor seats that I had been sitting in during pregame, which wasn't a big deal. There were other fans
You were ready,
but saw 2 seats that were empty at that under 16 media timeout, and walked over to one, played it cool, and nobody said a word the entire game. So I sat courtside at Rupp Arena for a Division I game. That was pretty cool. But not even just that. So like for the referee side of things, and I think a lot of our officiating friends can attest to this, I can't watch a game anymore without refereeing it. So for me, being courtside and getting to hear how they communicated with each other, maybe things that were said back and forth with coaches, and we talk about our tool belt. So there's a lot of maybe not lines, but just things that we go to that are genuine and rule-based, but a lot of things that it's easy to communicate if you have those lines and ready to go. So getting to hear some of that communication firsthand, how they talk with players, how they talk with each other, everything from body language to where they stand, or when they have reviewed plays and things like that. Because a lot of those things are the exact same on the women's side that we're going to do, whether it be like one of the 3 of you going to report to the media guys and gals for the game, letting them know what a ruling was and things like that. Just hearing all that stuff is extremely invaluable, and I felt really, really lucky to get to do that. But then the night only got better from there. So we got to go to dinner at a really, really nice restaurant, got to hear them basically break down the game, not only get to hear some of the ins and outs of the game, but then also his 2 partners. One is a 2-time Olympic referee and got all the accolades you can imagine. Also a Division I football white hat. So, and then the other partner is a 12-year Division I men's official that does a lot of good things in officiating that some of us all kind of know from the off-season type of stuff. But got to basically sit there and interviewed them more or less at dinner. Got to hear about the Olympic experiences, some of what their stories and what got them to where they're at. So like that in and of itself, the game was awesome. Really cool to get to see the ins and outs and get to go to the game and see where they dress and all that type of stuff. But the post game was definitely the best part of the trip.
That's awesome.
I hope at some point we can grab his other 2 partners for an interview. We're still waiting on one with Owen because I had some technical difficulties in Lexington. So we're still waiting on that interview, but no, just an invaluable weekend for sure and worth every second. Shout out to the wife too as well, because in order for me to do that, she had the kids alone all weekend, not feeling the greatest herself. So yes, MVP wife for sure. And we've talked about it a little bit last episode, but what kind of blessing is it to have the family we have, and especially the girlfriend you've got, and my wife as well, that are, it's very easy for them, or I say very easy, it's easier, I imagine, to get around having to hold down the house when we're going to work that was more of a for fun. It was a business trip for sure, and I learned a lot, but still more of a for fun trip. And I'm not bringing any money home. I'm only spending on that trip, but no, great weekend overall. Looking forward to whichever arena. Hopefully, we get to go watch him at next year.
Yeah, hopefully it works out. Fortunately, I had a game this year, so I had to miss out. Couldn't get out of that, but you know how it goes.
I had enough fun
Uh,
for the both of us.
That's I'm sure you did. I'm sure you did. Now, I do want to kind of touch on what you said about adding to the tool belt and kind of going to watch people work and hearing those things up close and personal. And I think the same holds true at the very beginning of our officiating journey. Granted, you and I have been doing this for years now. I say years, some people are 30, 40. We're at double digits at least. So one of the first things that I got told when I first got started was, "Hey, stick around after your JV game, or stick around after your junior high game, and watch these veterans. The people that have been in it for a while. Watch them work this game and see how they do things and see how they carry themselves, and you'll pick up a lot from doing that." And I remember sticking around and watching some of those games, and it helped me tremendously my first year in learning what am I supposed to be looking at. I could just brainstorm them. They would see me watching, "Hey, come in the locker room with us," stuff like that. And I think that that's obviously it's a little bit different at the Division One level. You're not going to get invited into the dressing room at halftime. There's just a lot more that goes into it
For sure.
at that level.
The men's national Division One coordinator also happened to be in the building, so cool on my part to get to meet him. But as far as what you're talking about, there was definitely a line that I could not cross, and I didn't want to. That's not something we ever want to get anybody in trouble or anything like that. I'm extremely appreciative of the opportunity. It's like I said, that's invaluable. There aren't very many people that get to do stuff like that.
You're right. I mean, it's a big opportunity right there
For
to
sure.
to go out that far and watch a game in Rupp Arena of all places.
And
It's a
still,
historic.
it's still so weird for me because I knew Owen as a friend. I knew him like he was a referee when I first met him, obviously still, but
Mhm.
knew him as a friend before I got to know him more as a referee mentor. So for me, that's like it's really weird to see like a friend slash celebrity in my world out doing his thing and get to do it or watch it in person like that.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. It's cool also when you're flipping through channels on TV and you see him working a game, stuff like that. It's just neat to be
Very
like,
cool.
"Yep,
I try to keep up
doing a
and
great, doing a
watch
great
most of
job."
his games. He worked a pretty good one tonight too.
And it's honestly, it's just cool to see. It makes me happy seeing everybody else succeed, seeing everybody get better, seeing everybody move up the ladder and get to wherever they want to get in officiating. And I think that's kind of a big purpose of what we're trying to do is just help people get better, help people understand the rules, help and for everyone, not just officials, but fans, players, coaches, officials, aliens, whatever.
For sure. Kind of to piggyback off of that, and I know you've said you've gotten a few this last week too. First of all, thank you for all the support. Second
Hmm.
of all, I've gotten even before we released the first episode. It seems like both of us, and I can attest for me personally more so because I know what I get from my friends in Oklahoma. I've become the rule and the video guy. I get a lot of clips from fellow officials or rules scenarios. I literally got a text from a friend right before we started recording a second ago with a scenario. First of all, I love that. Like to me, that's something I'm proud of. Even 4 or 5 years ago, I'd say maybe six, more like six. That wasn't really me. I would get in the rule book here and there, but not until you and I really became friends did I get deep into the rule book. And man, it changed everything for me. I became a lot better official because you got that right there to be able to quote to people. That's it's never going to change. I mean, obviously things change year to year here and there, but when you've got those things in your tool belt to be able to just quote to coaches or quote to players, it makes a big difference.
I think when you're able to use the rule book jargon, if that's what you want to call it, the actual verbatim rule, when you're discussing a play, that it definitely helps.
The
I
credibility
mean,
goes up immediately.
mhm, even if they don't know the rule, if it sounds, I mean, if you know the rule, obviously you know the rule.
For
But
sure.
let's say whoever you're explaining it to doesn't know the rule. The rule is going to sound believable because it's a fact. It's the rule. So it's going to sound credible. It's going to sound believable. And I just think that when you start getting into beating around the bush, I guess, and just saying what comes to your head, and you start maybe I don't know, you may not come up with something to say, but if you stick right to that rule book, you can have a response or no response or whatever's needed in the time and place.
For sure. Austin and I actually got to work a college game together today, and it was my first chance to ever be a crew chief. But during pregame with one of
Nailed
the during pregame with one of the coaches that I've now had, I guess this was like the third time, mentioned basically like, man, like, do you watch a lot of film or like you in the rule book a lot? Because it seems like every time we've had conversations throughout a game, you're spitting rule book jargon, just like you just mentioned to me. Like, yeah, coach, like if I'm going to talk to you, it's going to be in terms of things that are directly from the rule book. I'm not going to make something up. And if I'm the type, and I think a lot of coaches appreciate this, if I'm either drawing a blank or it's something that I genuinely don't know, I'm not going to lie to them. I don't make anything up. Coach, it's either something I missed or, hey, that's just something I kicked or don't understand or whatever the case may be. That's on me. I think a lot of people can appreciate that. And again, your credibility won't take as bad of a hit, I'll say, if you're honest.
Yeah, as bad. Ah, man.
So to what we mentioned about receiving plays from other fellow officials. If you guys see something crazy, send it to us. I can't promise we'll get to implement it into an episode, but the more the merrier. We'll start cataloging all those. If it's something that we're able to discuss on here, then we definitely will. But that's kind of the purpose and intent goes back to what we mentioned. Being able to refer to those during the heat of the moment, especially like you mentioned, or I mentioned earlier, that play with a player getting confused and shooting on the wrong end. Thankfully, that's never happened to me, but because I saw that now, I'm never going to forget that.
Never
You've always
gonna
got that.
happen.
You've always got that to revert back to.
That's right. I love it. And I think I'm gonna might try to share that video of you throwing the ball up for our game today. May have to do that from the side.
First college toss.
We do have some of those photos from Rupp Arena. We might have to share at the end of this.
That was pretty fun.
Might have to throw those in here, just so they can see how close up you got, so everybody can see what you did there. Maybe not.
At one, we'll see. No, it was during pregame. It wasn't once I had sat down when the game started. Owen and his partners come out and they're stretching, doing their thing, talking to players, and he notices me. He just mouthed him because obviously you can't let everybody around know that I'm with him. But he mouths to me like, How'd you do
that? How'd you get those seats?
I said, act like you've been here is exactly what I said.
Great. And I don't know if you mentioned it, but if you want to email us a clip, call it both ways ref at gmail.com.
I did not.
That's posted I'll make sure that's in the video here so you can see it, but call it both ways ref at gmail.com. And whatever you want to send to us, we're more than happy to take a look at it. And if we're able to share it, we'll do our best, and we'll do our best to go over it. Also, you can leave a comment on any of our Facebook posts, kind of dictating a rule you want us to go over, or a play, or if you happen to own a case book, you can pop open a case book and send us one of those, and we'll be happy to dive into the whys and the hows, I guess is the best way to put it. And then going forward, I know Kyle mentioned the technical difficulties with the first interview, but we've reached out to a few other people affiliated with basketball in NCAA and in the NBA, and we're trying to see if we can't get them on. Obviously, there's a lot that goes into that because that requires approval. So we are doing our best to get those questions geared up and get them involved and hear some of what they may have to say about the ins and outs of higher level officiating.
For sure. I think that is a perfect way to describe like how I felt getting to, like I said, more or less interview those guys at dinner in Lexington, because like I mentioned earlier, those are celebrities in our world. But when it comes down to it, sitting down at a dinner table, they were just three regular guys. It's hard for me to sit there and process all that because, like I said, those are celebrities, but just normal guys talking about their families and some of the things that they did to get where they are. Really brought it back home to like, if you put the work in and continue to do what you're supposed to do, continue to go to camps, continue to try to improve, watch film, stay in the rule book, I think we all all pretty much have the same opportunity to continue to move up and hopefully get to where these guys are.
I think so. I think you make a good point. Something we may cover going into the next episode is moving up the ladder. What that takes, what that's like.
I think you and I
So-
both have unique perspectives on that. Being you, big camp goer, a little different for me. I just had everything that I wanted as far as officiating in my backyard during high school. I knew at some point that was something I was interested in. Was college basketball. Aside from high school camps, I'd never really even heard of like hiring camps or how the process worked or anything like that. So for me, working for 8 years, I think, before I ever went to my first camp, and was already working into the second and third round of high school playoffs by then. I would say definitely, and we can get into it a little more, but I would say the sooner the better, because you and I have seen it. And I had a crew chief in a college game the other night, 23 years old. Shout out Riley Hooten. Goodness. I feel like had I done that, sure, could have had some of those same opportunities, but I'd say for young officials like that, get into camp sooner rather than later. Because watching her, like if you just told me like, hey, Kyle, you got a 23-year-old crew chief, might have scared me a little bit. She can call with the best of them. She's been to camp.
Mhm.
She's heard the right things. She's
Heck of an
doing
official.
all the things we're talking about to improve in the rule book, and somebody that I personally learned from. She's been in college basketball another year than I have. So just getting to watch her, even working with her the other day, learned a lot.
I agree. I got to work with her at camp this past summer, and it was great every time we stepped on the floor. Never had to worry. It was
That's
great.
nice. And even days like today, super fun getting to work with my best friend, first of all, and then past that, the coolness of getting to work together. Somebody that I know exactly what to expect out of the entire game. Going to be strong and steady from tip to finish. Never really going to waver emotionally. Going to be on top of plays. Obviously, we all still miss things, but man, super fun to get to do this together.
I agree. And we've got some cool stuff coming forward. I don't want to say too much, but we've gotten approval to do a few things, and so we're going to see how that works and how that turns out without getting too in depth on what it is exactly. But be prepared for some more videos to come your way, and going into the next episode next week, I'm sure we'll kind of cover moving up the ladder and maybe a couple other plays that we decide to post.
We
And
might have a first-hand view of some officiating.
Maybe that's your hint and your sneak peek.
So I'd
we
say that'd be a perfect segue to wrap things up. I do want to remind everybody that if you do need some officiating gear, go see our friends at Sports Officiating Supplies. I can't tell you again how excited we are to have them as a sponsor. But from Pee Wees to pros, Sports Officiating Supplies is your source for all things referee. They offer uniforms for 16 different state associations as well as NCAA apparel. As a certified Smitty dealer, they offer a wide selection of uniforms for 8 different sports at competitive prices with personalized customer service. It's owned and operated by active officials. We want you to make your first great call. Visit them online at sportsofficiatingSupplies.com/discount/both ways. You get that 10% discount. That is just for basketball apparel or accessories. So I won't get that 10% on my softball stuff, but maybe we can work something out with Blake.
Hey, make sure you go get your supplies soon, and we'll see you back here next week.
So we completely forgot to mention that the best way for any of our listeners to support us, make checks payable to. No, I'm just kidding. Obviously, likes and comments add up. Be sure you go to our YouTube channel and subscribe. That is the best way that we continue to make this content, be able to spread the word, and ultimately help other fellow officials.
Thanks again.
Like, comment, subscribe.